Hello again. Thank you so much for listening to the first video for week 7. I wanted to go into a little more detail in terms of our writing in the genre of op-ed. Again, a 2 to 3 page short draft due by Friday, just exploring that cultural issue we've been working on since the beginning of our class together. You can find the multiple pages of our op-ed project prompt by clicking just to the right side of our document here. So what is op-ed writing? This is a quotation taken from the New York Times. It was originally a genre that kind of came out of the New York Times, and it explains, if you click here, the sort of lengthier article about where op-ed writing comes from. But basically, it started in 1970, and the writer says it was the objective was to afford greater opportunity for exploration of issues and presentation of new insights and new ideas by writers and thinkers who have no institutional connection with the times and whose views were very frequently divergent from our own. So it allows us a place for all of our voices, for those to share what they call divergent ideas from those of the writers in the New York Times. And they continue by saying it was this beautiful ambition which was, well, there's nobody to keep us honest, says James Bennett, the current editorial page editor. We've retained the ambition to have a really wide range of voices there, to create an environment of collegial combat among different points of view, dealing with consequential questions. For Mr. Bennett, op-ed articles are meant to push readers into considering points of view just outside their comfort zone. The goal is to supply readers with a steady stream of big ideas and provocative arguments and to entertain them, he said. It should be an exciting experience and often a challenging one. And that has meant publishing pieces by President Vladimir Putin of Russia, the Blackwater founder Erik Prince, and a different take on climate change, all of which created a stir when they were published. And you can find these articles, and I think this should open if we click here, but we haven't read the one by Putin yet. But really taking a quick stroll through the internet for op-ed pieces is quite exciting. I've been picking a lot of op-ed pieces that were written initially by student writers and then later published for wider audiences, just as yours might be. Very exciting ways to, I think, to end class. One of my teaching philosophy, one of my major tenets of teaching philosophy is that we are, as students, learning, but also learning for beyond the classroom and to share ideas beyond the classroom. And so students, I appreciate when students feel empowered to share their ideas and equipped to speak to larger audiences about topics that they're passionate about. So thank you so much for delving into this particular project. I hope you have fun writing it. I have a quotation at the bottom of this page by Chandra Bozelko. She said, "After years of being ignored, people now listen to what I say, mostly because I learned how to perfect an evidence-based argument through the op-ed project. I have a new sense of what it's like to matter to the world, and my experience has infused me with a sense of duty that I fulfill through thought leadership, op-ed style. There's power in my pen, and I know it." And this op-ed project is not from my class. There's a website that has a whole bunch of editors and project managers that work with various people who submit work to them to get their op-ed projects published. And this is the op-ed project that I shared with you last week. It was a community of leaders, journalists, commentary writers, and activists who share their skills to help others get published. And so for those of us in our class who are interested, you can always submit your work to the op-ed project and see if there's a potential venue for that publication. To start your drafting, I really just copied our steps for drafting and structure of the op-ed piece from our previous thinking in our shared collaborative readings. This should all look familiar, starting with a lead, thinking about a thesis or an argument, using your op-ed position from your week 6 ePortfolio posts would be kind of like your thesis. Always start with the question that you're asking, and then the answer to that question is pretty much your position on that topic. And then the argument. Again, we've been thinking about various ways of not only telling our readers about what kind of evidence exists, but showing them through dialogue, through interactions, through different characters in our life, through artifacts. And also last week you kind of found an article too, so feeling free to use that secondary source article that was published from a different site that you verified and sort of thought through in terms of its political angle, whether it was sort of situated at that Ad Fontes website in the middle, maybe it was more to the left or to the right, but thinking about where that piece of evidence fits into. Having a sort of paragraph that is a counter argument works to kind of say that there might be people that think differently about this topic, but then circling back to your conclusion and your lead from the beginning. Don't get stuck on writing the lead. Sometimes it's easier to write the introduction last, and especially since you might not know exactly where you're taking the paper. So I would encourage you to have just like a little placeholder for the introduction, but then to come back to it. It's not important that you get the introduction perfect from the outset. That's something that we can always work on later. But here are some ideas on how to write a great lead and news hook, using the news, telling a dramatic anecdote, turning conventional wisdom on its end, using an anniversary. What time of year is it? What are we quickly approaching? Or getting personal. And these are examples. You can pause this video and kind of read through and also think carefully about the readings we have encountered already and how they introduce their subjects. And finally, our rubric, the genre, that it's 2 to 3 pages and that it's written a strong, informed, and focused opinion based on the student's cultural issue alongside contemporary events, so that there's some kind of relevance to this idea in the here and now, that you're connecting it to the contemporary moment. The purpose, that this position is easily identifiable in the lead and the title, that we kind of understand from the outside what the purpose for writing this is. The lead may use the news, tell a dramatic anecdote, use an anniversary as an occasion to write, or get personal. What about evidence? Much evidence in the form of personal experience. I love personal experience. And your artifact included throughout. Please also feel free to use the articles that you came across as you were researching a little bit, kind of doing some light research about this topic. I'll show you how to cite those sources in a moment. And then finally, the audience, that you have a sense of audience, that the writer employs empathy and respect, that it's not just this is what I think and no one else thinks this idea, but is careful about establishing a sense of empathy and inclusivity through language that does not write off the people who would disagree, but really is kind of presenting the issue, but sensitive to the fact that there may be other perspectives on that issue. And that's sort of the most complex and sophisticated kind of writing, hard to balance. Now, while I've been really kind of holding off on including secondary source research, statistics and studies, etc., I will allow to have, I would be happy in the short paper for you to include one of those news sources that you might be responding to. And in order to do that, what you'll have to do in the text of your paper is to put quotation marks around whatever you're borrowing from the article. And then next to those quotation marks, you'll have, in parentheses, the name of the author from the article, comma, and then the year that the article was published. So, for example, if you use a newspaper article from the New York Times, Carrie B would be the author. B would be the first letter of the first name, and then Carrie is the last name. The year it was published, 2019, and if you want to be more specific, even the month and the date from that month. And then here's the title. You notice it's not in italics, it's not in quotation marks, it's just the title. Only the first word is capitalized. Can we get better at forgetting question mark? And then the New York Times is italicized, the publication that you found that article in, followed by the link, the direct link to that article. And this citation is something that you'll add just to the very end of your op-ed, and you can title that section reference. So you'll put a reference title followed by just the one source that you're using in the background for any potential statistics or observations or opinions that you find relevant to your own op-ed piece. Again, in text, when you're citing the article with quotations around it, words, phrases, ideas, statistics, you'll put in parentheses next to that the last name of the author by the year. And including the year. And that will indicate to the reader that those words are not your own and they're coming from this article by Carrie that was published in 2019. Finally, I would like you to really try out one of the free resources at COD called Wursa. Here's how you'll do it. You can either register with Wursa to create an account. Maybe you already have an account, by clicking, adding your email address and a password. If you are logging in for the first time, you'll click on register for an account. If you're logging in for subsequent times, you'll just put your email and password here. But this is an opportunity to meet with a writing specialist, someone who is frequently familiar with drafting with students, with giving directions on various stages of their draft, similar to my work. And what you'll do is you'll have options to schedule an appointment either in person on campus, working on one-on-one with someone in the Learning Commons. You can do this also over a live Zoom session. You can click here to do a live Zoom session, or you can actually do an appointment asynchronously by sending your draft to have an email coach. And so all three of these are like really great options. And again, I'm really just pushing you to kind of explore the free resources you have available to you, not only at COD, but of course beyond COD if you're transferring, looking for different ways to receive feedback on ideas. And I think that's always an important practice. No person that's sort of publishing work hasn't received ideas, hasn't received feedback on that work. And so please have that brief appointment set up with your consultant anytime between now and October 11th. And so this appointment can be a drafting appointment. You don't have to have your full draft to have this appointment. You can bring some ideas, you can bring the prompt and just talk about some of your ideas, or you can bring your full draft. It's totally up to you, whatever stage of the process you'd like to meet with that consultant in. But after you meet with that consultant, make sure to include some information about the date and time of the appointment, the consultant's name, the type of appointment, and just a brief summary of the feedback you received when you met with that consultant. And I would like you to select some revision goals using this rubric. Maybe it's with genre, maybe it's with evidence, maybe you have to work on purpose. And then just a general comment about the ease and access of the consultation. And again, these don't have to be completed till next Wednesday, October 11th, but it may behoove you to set up an appointment and just make sure to secure your time anytime between now and then. I hope you have an exciting week. I know there's a lot of work this week, but next week we're going to be sort of really easing into the sort of final moves of this class, where we're going to just be revising and potentially meeting, if you're free, to sort of close our class. So we will be swiftly coming to an end, but I wanted to make sure that we got in some great material before our writing and our time together comes to an end. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to getting back to you on your ePortfolio posts and your revised artifact analysis projects. You guys are doing so great. Thank you so much for your patience and for your vigor and for your momentum in this very quick 8 weeks. Thank you so much for listening, and have a good week.